I didn't see Steve on the CNCF distribution meeting yesterday, so I'm guessing he might be out on a boat ride right now. We'll do the standard 5 minutes to give everyone a chance to join in. I threw the link up for the HackMD in the chat so everybody can do the sign in. Pritesh, I think you're going to be up first, so feel free to jump on the screen share if you want to.
Let me share the screen. So during last meeting, let me show it off on the chat, like it's there in the meeting notes. So in last meeting, we touched upon the doc, but we didn't got time to go over it or provide feedback on it. So it would be great if everyone can just read the doc for a few minutes and then provide the feedback over it. It's basically talk about the signature formats that we explored in there, two sessions which we have. One is using JWS, another is using the extended DC basically. And then we also have some open questions at the end, which we can discuss.
Sorry, Pritesh, would it be helpful if you could give us a summary of what you'd like us to focus on?
So I would like to get initial feedback on the signature format and the payload format. So like in this doc, we suggested two signature formats. One is using JWS JSON, other is using the DZ. And we have also suggested the payload format for all the information we need. So we are looking for initial feedback on the format and signature format and payload format.
So this is
Okay, sorry,
to
go
fill
ahead.
in more context. I think we have been talking about signature format for multiple things now. We had another document that compared different formats, and then we narrowed down to JWS and Dizzy extended. And to get more clarity, we said we'll actually define some sample payloads, show how it relates to a sample image manifest and a signature manifest. So that's what this document is supposed to capture. And then the idea is to gather feedback around if the payload structure is on the payload structure, if there are any attributes missing, naming of these attributes and semantics of these attributes.
Right, Albeit. Looking at this example of why we have annotations on a subject manifest and signed attributes separately, what's the difference?
Sure, that's what I guess those are some of the points. I think in that particular example, the descriptor annotations and I think the custom map are two different ways of doing the same thing. I wanted opinions from folks who are more familiar with what is what is correct from an OCI standpoint, etc.
I don't have an opinion on the OCI standpoint. Looking at the custom map, it worries me that this is going to cause namespace conflicts, especially with these examples. At least if the examples use traverse DNS or something like that to namespace, that would be helpful.
Sure. So basically similar to how we review some of the other docs in this meeting, expecting everyone to I think it'll probably take around 10 to 15 minutes to go through, put in comments in different sections, and then we can run through all the comments.
Sorry, dumb question. How do we put in comments on HackMD? I don't see an easy way.
Just select
You
the
have
text.
to highlight.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Okay, I see. Got it. Thanks.
How are we doing on reading?
I'm ready.
Anyone need more time?
So while everyone else is reading, I wonder if I could quickly ask some clarifying questions. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Great. Sorry. So it's been a while since I brushed myself up with the OCI terminology. So I could use a little bit of help here. I'm pretty sure they're quick questions you can answer. So what am I looking at in the first thing? This is the manifest for the image, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, great. And what am I looking at next?
That's an artifact. So that comes from the artifact spec that they're working on right now. And that whole artifact
Okay.
should be encapsulating the signature, and then it also has a pointer going back to saying I'm pointing to this other image object somewhere else.
Interesting. So that's a higher level artifact. Okay, that's why the schema version is 3, I suppose. Okay. And it's pointing to the artifact. Sorry, is it pointing to the previous manifest?
Yeah, that's why it's got the media type in there that says it's under the OCI artifact, and then it has a specific artifact type saying it's a notary artifact. Somewhere in here, somewhere in here, I think we're supposed to have a reference that says we're pointing over to this other image, and it might be the subject manifest. I'm not sure. I haven't looked at artifact spec lately, but it's looking like it right there with the subject manifest that has the pointer that says here's the reference to the image. It means you can push multiple artifacts, and then we can query the registry and say, give me all the artifacts that point to this image. And the registry will be able to give back all of these individual signatures.
I see. Okay, great. Thanks. That's a wonderful explanation. Thanks. So, and what are we signing? We're signing for each, or, well, you want to sign the artifacts, no? Not necessarily the image. Is that correct?
I think what we're signing here is that subject manifest section. I believe that's the subject manifest
section.
Yeah, so everything within that subject manifest, we sign that, we push that as a separate blob. And so that's the signed, the payload and everything else in there. And so I've got a few questions on that, but I believe that's where we're pushing the data.
Interesting. Got it. Okay, thanks. Yeah.
And that's just me from the OCI side. From the people who've been working on this, jump in if I'm saying anything wrong.
E3 or 73C80, that's the digest of what exactly? The whole blob above there?
That should be the digest of the entire OCI image manifest. And so if you took
the previous blob,
the previous blob, if you took that whole thing and ran it through a SHA-256 sum, it should come out to that digest.
Yeah, the page says 9AA something, so that's a mismatch.
Oh, that's copy paste error. I will fix that.
So when we're signing the signature payload down there, the size 809 is literally the subject manifest field we're looking at right now. Is that correct?
Yep.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I just want to make sure everybody got a chance to read, or if they're still reading, we should give them a chance to finish, because some of these questions everybody may have, and it'll just be distracting for people who are still reading. Can everyone indicate if they're done reading and we can start? Just want to make sure everybody got time to finish reading.
I'm done reading myself. I think 20 minutes we've given people a good opportunity.
I am also done.
All right.
Then
I think the questions Trishank asked are quite valid. I think other folks also may have the same question. Ritesh, if we can kind of reiterate what the initial two manifests are and how they relate to the signature, I think that'll just help set context, and then we can go through the comments.
So just for clarification on this one, we've got the notary section there. We talk about here's the artifact that we specify. It's got the subject manifest in there. We have the signature payload in the next section. Should that be identical to the subject manifest?
Yep, that should be identical. It's like copy paste rather just change the short area.
Okay.
Yeah, I just added. It's good to align so people don't get confused as to what is this new SHA and everything.
Yeah,
Yeah, just it might help just put a little bit of text in there as well, just saying, okay, this is where we got it from.
yeah. So let's go with another one by one. We'll discuss this one. Yeah, we should have a different media type for that. But I'm assuming that's going through an OCR discussion, not here.
I think we should talk about annotations.
Oh,
I'm having like a hard time understanding these annotations at different levels, Milind, actually. And interestingly, there is annotation in the signature payload also, which is different from the annotations that are being shown in the subject manifest in the art. And then these annotations don't match with the subject manifest in the artifact manifest. So I'm just curious, or like I'm just trying to understand these multi-level annotations, how they're used, or like who.
No, I totally agree. I don't have a strong viewpoint on how annotations are used. I'm not from an OCI background or have enough to say, but I'm looking for feedback here.
So my understanding, hopefully that when we have the artifact spec approved, we should hopefully be able to query on the annotations that are on the top level of the artifact. And so you could say, registry, please give me back all of the signatures that have this annotation on it, so that you can pull back just the signature for acmerockets.io in this case, because there may be other signatures in that same repository from other things that have signed the same artifact. And then the annotations within the subject manifest, those are things you want to sign to be cryptographically secure. And so you put the annotation in there, then you sign that whole subject manifest object. And then by doing that, you now have that as a signed piece of data.
So to kind of reiterate, make sure I'm on the same page. On the signature manifest, the annotations that we have there, like for example, the signature subject is something that we think will be used as an input to the references API to narrow down the references returned. So this is should basically supported by that references spec on API and implemented by registries. Okay.
That's my understanding.
Okay, and then that yeah, I think there are details there on how that subject, the value of the subject is defined or discovered, but all right, so that is one area we can dig into that. And then on the subject manifest, the descriptor itself, Pritesh, if you can scroll down to the JWS or signature payload. Yeah, in this example, I think the signature payload and the example don't match, but like, let's look at the JWS JSON serialization example. We have the subject manifest, which is a basic descriptor plus annotations. I'm not sure if we should use that annotations or just rely on something of a dictionary outside of that structure, like the custom or preserved. Are there any viewpoints there?
Before going there, I have a question. So will top level, so this subject manifest annotation will be subset of top level annotations, or it can be anything?
Yeah, any of these annotations can be anything. You can put whatever annotation you want to in from the OCI spec. But theoretically, there would be a field, in this case, something that you would want to have integrated with your client tooling. Client tooling will be able to query for it.
So client tooling should be able to query on these annotations also?
The Subject manifest, I don't believe so. I think that is strictly to say this is additional data. We're signing the digest, correct? You know, we've got our image manifest out there. We're signing the digest. We want to be able to sign additional data in addition to just that digest to say, here's other things that we want to be able to put in there. And the best place we had to put that additional data we want to sign is in the annotations.
See, I had a similar open question here. So if you look at the signature format here, so what we were proposing was have a manifest, subject manifest field, and then have a custom data which user can provide any custom information they want, which would be integrity protected by the signature. So I had
What's the difference between? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
So yeah, I had a similar question open at the end of the doc. Like, should we in payload we are already specifying? Do we need subject manifest annotation as we already specified like signed attribute custom collection?
Actually, sorry, before we go into that, the previous section where we had annotations, both in the, if you can scroll up higher. Yeah, so subject manifest has its own annotations, and this whole signature manifest has its annotations. I understand that from, I think from OCI standpoint, a descriptor at any level can have annotations. But I think we need to attach, some of these have some semantic meanings and some of these are just free from because the spec allows it. Like the subject manifest annotations, I'm not sure what the value of that is if we are already gonna be signing those attributes in the payload. It's like the data is being represented, the same data is being represented both in the signature manifest and in the payload that we are going to sign. But does my question make sense?
Question makes sense. It might make sense when we get into the specific implementations to make sure that we can add that customization to each one and then decide where it makes more sense to place that custom data.
Okay.
Okay, continuing over the comments. We already, I think, discussed this. Yep. We'll do the next one. Yep, they are supposed to be seen. That's the copy paste error I made. Yep, I agree. Any feedback on the structure of the payload? Should we just omit the notary block, notary key itself, just move this to a parent attribute? Like everything to the parent?
Yeah, I don't understand why it's called. I mean, Shiwei has a good question there. Might as well. If you're signing just a subject manifest in the artifact, what do you call it? The artifact manifest? Yeah, it makes sense to move it. I don't see the value of adding a Notary V2 specific field, especially if you're going to have other tools read this. Sorry, go ahead.
I was busy typing an answer to your question there, Shashank, because the question makes sense. But when we get into the Merkle tree design here, the sign blob itself, I believe, is that blob up at the top. And so it's that 9834 blob. When we push that, you know, we've signed that, we've pushed it up there. We've now got this digest in here. We can't sign the entire artifact because you need that digest from the signed data to be part of the artifact. It's a Merkle tree.
Oh, I see, because you haven't
directed
pushed it yet to the, I see.
You don't know the data to put in there because you need to create it. And so you need to have some separate thing on the side that we're signing.
Got it. Another follow-up quick question, please. Sorry. So you're saying that it's not possible to get the digest because you can't compute it locally. What really matters is what the registry gives you, which could be different from what you compute locally. Is that correct?
No. So look at it a different way. If you take this entire artifact,
yes,
and you sign the whole thing with the blob,
yes,
the value of the digest that you just created is going back into the hash that you need to compute to make the digest that you want to compute. You basically made a loop in a Merkle tree. And you can't do that. It's when you put the sign blob in there, it's puts a hash as the blob name. It puts that 983. You can't control that. It's just what the hash of the data you have in there for that signed data. And so
I see,
you
okay.
have to sign a subset of this so that you can keep those two things separate.
Got it, got it. I just wanted to make sure we didn't miss anything important there that is unsigned. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. I think that's why we put everything in the subject manifest we can. And so that's, everything that needs to be signed that needs to go in there. And so the understanding is that anything that's outside of that, it's not trusted, it's not secure. So if I query on the annotation and I don't see the Acme rockets, I'm still verifying that signature later on. So I don't trust that this thing is really acmerockets.io. It's just an efficiency thing to query. I still need to verify that later on when I check the signature.
Right. Okay, I see. Got it. Thanks.
Going over the comments again. Yep, we can move everything. So in case of JWS, you need to have a specific claim basically, which should be distinct one. That's the reason we added Notary V2 as the top level node here. Just to avoid the conflicts in the claims if we are using JWS JSON, the acceleration there for signing. Because JWS expect the private claims to be unique. Yeah, so basically, I wanted to keep a separation between the subject manifest and any other additional attributes which we are adding to the signature. That's the reason we have introduced a separate node called signed attributes here, so that we can have a distinction between subject manifest and signed attributes. Then inside, signed attribute contains everything apart from the payload which we are trying to sign. It's basically like a metadata information of the signature. And then in reserved, we just keep the key value pair, which will be only used for Notary V2 purpose. And in custom, we can add, user can add whatever they want to add for signature purpose there. They can add their build ID, image ID, and things like that. That makes sense.
Is signed attributes, is that a standard JWS syntax or is that something we added for Notary?
It's not a standard JWS syntax. In JWS syntax, there's nothing called signed attributes. In JWS, there's something called protected headers. Signed attributes taken from PKCS7.
I would be tempted to pull out an entire layer of the tree here and just say Notary V2 is the subject manifest. And then all the custom things, all those signed attributes, stuff like that all goes into the annotations. That would be my personal push, but I'm open to other options from the community as well.
So just to give some background, so we started with a descriptor is the basic thing or payload that we want to sign. And then we needed other signed attributes beyond this basic descriptor. And this is kind of the wrapped payload structure, which has the descriptor and other attributes alongside. And we didn't want to add things into annotations that were kind of reserved for Notary purposes because the annotations seemed like a common key value or common dictionary, and makes it easier to have things conflict in there. So like structurally having two different maps for the reserved purposes and the custom, that is why they're separated out.
So you're correct in that it is kind of like an open key value store. The way to avoid any collisions, if you're worried about other users in there, is that we would have our annotation namespace. So it would be under the .org CNCF Notary namespace. And then everything under there, we can say, we own this namespace as the Notary project. We put our stuff in there. Customers, you should put your stuff under your own namespace.
I think that makes sense, that the reservation there was customers may either, that doesn't prevent anybody from kind of overwriting. They can use the same key and write into it.
Yeah, annotations are definitely free form, but this is the signed data here. So is there a concern that a customer is going to put something in the annotation in the Notary V2 namespace is going to break our stuff?
Yeah, like for example, from the viewpoint of the component that creates these signatures, right? The contract looks like the input is a descriptor or a pointer to a digest in a registry and a set of key value pairs that the customer provides. And for that component to form this payload, it kind of has to do validations against, these are the standard set of attributes. What if the customer specified keys also collide with what are reserved? You send back an error, etc. Whereas if they're separated out, even in the case where customers end up using the same name, so they're completely free to use anything.
The other way of doing that, the other way of doing that would just be to have some client-side tooling when you say you can add whatever annotations you want in there. If any client tries to add something under the org CNCF Notary namespace, you say that's not your namespace. We reject that field.
Yeah, we can do that. I thought this was a more cleaner approach. So I think we can go either way. It requires some additional validations to use the common bag.
Yeah, for me, the reason I would push to try to just make the Notary V2 section just the entire subject manifest is that it makes other tooling a little bit easier that knows how to work with a digest or with the descriptor, I should say. So any tooling we have that reads the descriptor just says, okay, here's the descriptor. Let me read all the annotation fields in there in the digest, and you just have one tool that works for the entire object and not have to split out and say, okay, here's the tooling that reads the descriptor, here's the tooling that reads the signed attributes and separates on that logic.
Well, this is the signature payload and it's embedded in the signature envelope. So a notary unaware tool is not going to be able to parse it anyway.
Yeah, this is kind of the signature blob pointed by the signature manifest. And maybe this is only interpreted by the thing that is parsing this payload and verifying the signature. The other reason is also if you, Ritesh, if you go down to the DZ example of payload. So if we do it that way, right, the annotations, there are some of these, if we put everything in annotation, some of the attributes related to the signature itself, like the issuance time or the expiry, ARL or whatever revocation related, all of those go into the same annotations, and they have like different purposes. So the customer specified ones are either just informational or for some extended validation they want to run post basic signature validation. But we have these other attributes. So everything kind of gets namespaced and put into the same bag. And I thought that was a little messy. Then would be better to clearly separate them out.
Yeah, I can see value to either side. The place I would kind of work on adding the decision point there would be to say, are these details like the identity and some of that stuff, would they be useful to any tooling downstream that is looking at the descriptor and parsing it? Or is it only valuable to the signing tool that's doing the verification?
That's a valid point. I think we need to work on this validation flow, exactly what is the sequence of events that happens and who consumes what information. I think some of that detail needs to be present to clarify this.
It might be worth pointing out that the payload will always be in like base 64 encoded in some other encoded form. So it might not be readily consumable by any tooling that they will have to like parse the payload before consuming that. You would have to convert to like decode base 64 or something like that.
I think we can continue. We can capture some of these as the comments or notes. We have 15 minutes left. Kind of circling back to the meeting agenda, there's a PR section that is just for awareness. Want to give some time to Marina for the tough design, this item there.
Let me quickly scan through the comments here. Just let me know if anyone wants to discuss these comments. I'm just going through them quickly. Yeah. I think we already discussed about the conflict. I think we already discussed every comment here. Moving on to the next one. Yep, we cannot support multiple signature with the same format, but yeah, we can have multiple artifacts for the signature.
I think in the previous comment, Miloslav had one regarding critical. Did we address that?
I didn't miss that.
Critical optional.
Oh, this one, okay. It's coming as a new format as a production.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure whether it belongs in the payload or the envelope, but it's probably something that should be defined. Alternatively, we could always just reserve V2, but that doesn't work for the custom options.
So JWS has support for critical. So in the protected headers, you can see the content type being marked as critical. I think that's a good call out. At least there needs to be a mechanism around required and optional and with respect to extensibility. I think we can think more about this and try to address it in the DISY. I think it's supported through JWS for standard headers. I don't know what the equivalent would be for DISY. In DISY, most of the things are defined in the payload.
So we can divide this time, like we can have a convention in DISY payload. These are the critical nodes. These are optional ones.
Yep.
I think Brandon and Linda already answered this. So basically the payload is different because we're trying to use JWS functionality there, which are playing it automatically evaluated, so that we can use existing libraries for JWS. We can use existing JWS libraries for evaluation there, which will done most of the heavy lifting for us. Going to the next comment. Yeah, that's all. I think I had 2 open questions here. We already discovered the first one. Yes, there was one more open question there. Should the signature validation fail if anyone adds an extra field here or unsupported field?
Yeah, I have opinions on that. I've been working with the Entoto spec bunch lately, and they do have a hard fail if you add or remove a field or anything like that. It's been very difficult for us because it makes forward extensibility very difficult. So the option that I think they're pushing for on their side, because they're facing a similar challenge, is that they want to version the payload. And so they want to say, this is version 1. If you ever see something that's version 2, you don't know how to parse it. That's when you reject it. Otherwise, any field in here, people can add new fields, and as long as it's still matching the version 1 spec, you just parse it as is.
The problem is that
Right, exactly. That's the same thing we've been trying to do in TUF also, which is to say, as long as you see all the fields you expect to see, for example, in version 1 or version 2, and you see any extra new fields, you shouldn't complain.
But aren't there now unauthenticated fields there in the signature?
I'm really
Sorry,
not
why would it be
sure
enough?
around here. Like, it's way too
If
easy to add a
it's-
field without thinking what the old versions will do.
Oh, the envelope. Oh, not the payload. I see.
Envelope, yeah.
I would say for both, just because you don't know what people are going to want to be able to put in there for future compatibility. Someone may want to extend DISI later on to add some new functionality. I haven't looked specifically at DISI to know if they've got the same issue that Intoto has, but that was just the challenge we've been facing as we added in new functionality. It'll be nice that new functionality just activates when it sees that field exists and not, automatically reject it. And to give you an example of the new functionality, we're looking at adding, instead of in toto, it's everything is an individual signature and individual signer. We're looking at just adding certificate authorities. And as soon as we add that, we break all the old in toto layouts, and then none of the new ones will even be able to read the old ones. So we have broken both forward and backward compatibility just because we have that hard requirement that all the fields must exist.
There's kind of a way to split the reference, define a top level extensions fields, and say that anything goes in there. It doesn't make a technical difference, but it calls the attention to the fact that some consumers may not be interpreting the field.
It really depends. Sorry, go ahead.
I was saying there's some good feedback there around here. I think there are two things that we're talking about: payload extensibility and the envelope extensibility. I think we'll update this document with that. I think we should close on this talk and give time for the next item.
Yeah, I agree. I would like more information and we can discuss later. Thank you for everyone for providing feedback on the talk.
So looking forward to the other items. We've got a bunch of PRs in there. Do we need to individually look at any of these, or is that just more an awareness thing for other people to go in and look at after the meeting?
Yeah, it's more of awareness.
Okay. So I think that leaves a few minutes for Marina if you want to go into the tough design.
Yeah, sure. This is a document that it's kind of a raising awareness issue, but I can go into it for a minute. This is a design that kind of explains a lot of the tough design based on feedback from a few months ago when we were first discussing it. And I think that based on the conversation last week, I think there's still a lot of pieces that are already in this design that we can clarify before figuring out which pieces we haven't yet figured out. I think my main idea was to get us all on the same page about what's being proposed, so that then we can see, what it does and doesn't solve from the same page. I can share my screen and we can look at it, or people can just look at it on their own. I mean, I don't have a particular preference. It's just a document here. Any preference there?
I guess what's the action item we want to get out of this one? Do we want to try to get the
I guess
community? It's
I
already
just like
in
some
the
feedback,
repo.
basically.
Okay.
Yeah, I like some feedback, and then to see, because based on this, again, just some discussion last week, I think that there are pieces here that still need to be addressed. And I think I just want to make sure we know what those are, and then can make progress there, basically. So I think there's some of them, for example, the movement between registries and separation of private artifacts from public ones and stuff that have really, I think, been addressed already in this piece, in this version of the design. But there are others that I think that that came up that I really want to continue to discuss. So this is just really continuing that discussion.
A quick question: the PR that we talked about last week and this content in this branch, are they the same?
No, so the PR from last week was an addition to this document, and I think that addition was a little bit less design and a little bit more motivation. So I haven't merged that in because I think that the feedback from last week was valid in that that belongs somewhere, but maybe not as part of the design. I haven't quite figured out where exactly that somewhere is. But this is really more of a design document than it is a requirements or anything like that.
what's the best way to then comment or like have discussions around specific section, because this is committed in a branch, right?
Yeah, because yeah, this was from a while ago. So maybe we could either, I can either open, people can either open new PRs, we can discuss there, or maybe like issues or discussions, any of those different features. Or we can also just like come up with a list and talk about it next week in this meeting, which would also be totally fine.
I'm fine either ways. I was on call last week, so I didn't have bandwidth to look either at the other PR. But I think before next sync, I can spend some time looking at board documents.
Sounds good to me. The only feedback I would have for you, Marina, is some of the pictures, all the backgrounds are transparent, so they're not too
Oh,
bad
yeah.
on a black background, but our famous issue.
Yeah. I think I have a PR somewhere that does that and other things. Maybe I'll separate out the picture part and just merge that in.
Feel like them, the accessibility guinea pig out here. The one person that turns the black backgrounds on.
That's good feedback. Make sure everyone can read the diagrams.
All right. I think that was the last of our agenda. So unless there's anything else, till next week.
All right,
Thanks for facilitating,
thanks for
Brendan.
running.
So,
Have a good week, everyone.
Thanks.